Here's an example of a way to use Portuguese stem stitch. You can see it looks just like a thicker, more textured stem stitch. So why not learn this variation? It starts out like any stem stitch. I've brought my thread up from the back, and in this video I'm just stitching right-handed because it's fairly different left-handed, so that needs a separate video. So I'm going to be going left to right, and my needle is pointing to the left. And the big rule about stem stitch when you're stitching right-handed is here's my line. So my rule is when I'm doing the stem stitch part of this, make sure that the thread is underneath the line as you're bringing the needle through. So first I'm going to use a sewing stitch motion and see how I'm bringing the needle in, not all the way back to where I started, but just halfway to where I started. And I pull it through. So that's the stem stitch part of it. Now I'm going to leave my thread up here because I'm making the other part of it. This is like a little wrap or a knot. Now the first one on this is different from all the others. It's a starter stitch that's different. I'm bringing my needle underneath this thread to the left of where this came out. Okay, so I'm not going back on this side of it. I'm on the left side of where I brought my thread out. And I'm not going through the fabric. There's a lot of things to remember not to do here. All right, so there's one. Now, again, keeping this thread up here above the line, I'm coming from the bottom up again to the left, and you can see this time I've come out to the left of where the thread was coming out. So now I have two wraps around that stitch that I took. And the only reason I kept my thread above the line here was just to keep it out of my way. Now I'm switching back to a stem stitch, so here's our rule of keep the thread under the line for the stem stitch part of it. This time I'm going to take a stitch that will work the way all the other stitches will work. I'm taking a bite through the fabric now, and instead of coming halfway, I'm going all the way to this hole. And I'm pulling a stem stitch through. So in other words, I'm just making a stem stitch. Now you can see that I've got a piece of thread here and a piece of thread here. So which one do I wrap under, the top one or the bottom one? The answer is you wrap under both of them now. So I'm going to pass my needle under both of these threads. Again, just going bottom to top, and see how I'm just keeping this thread out of my own way. I pull that wrap through. Now we make another wrap going under bottom to top. And you lefties, if you're watching this, you can see why this would be pretty different doing it as a lefty. So I snug that up a little bit. From here on out, the stitches will be the same. But just in case you don't have that memorized, let's take another one. I'm stitching back to come out at this same hole. Pull it all the way through. That's the stem stitch. So this part I think calls this Portuguese knotted stem. So let's think of that was the stem. Here come the knots or the wraps. So I'm coming underneath with one wrap to the left of my thread. And here's the second wrap to the left of where that came out. Now the things that will make yours look different from mine or someone else's is how much tension you have on this. If you do this with a loose tension, or if your stem stitches are longer, it's just going to have a different texture. You'll see more variation in the texture. If it's too loose of a tension, it will lose definition. Okay, there's the stem stitch. Here's wrap number one. And I don't know what to tell you about tension. Some of us tend to stitch a little bit too tight. Some of us always tend to stitch a little bit too loose. And you'll know pretty quickly which one you are. I tend to be someone who stitches a little bit too loosely. I don't know why. But you can see that's the way the stitch is going to proceed. And I am working with a size 22 chenille needle right now and a size 5 pearl cotton. So that gives a pretty chunky definition. So you can see I'm making this a little loose so you can see those are the two threads going under both of them, not through the fabric. So the part that goes through the fabric is the stem stitch part, and the little wraps just go around the two pieces of thread. Now when you're finished with this, let's say I'd gotten to the end of the line, I'd made my whole vine or outline, whatever I was doing, and I wanted to end it. Now it's tempting just to sink this down right here at the end of the line and think, great, I'm done. But you'll notice what happens if you do that. You're going to get like a little eye. It almost looks like a chain stitch. And, you're going to end up starting to pull it and try to get it tight. It's just not going to work. So what you want to do is end it almost as if you're starting into another stem stitch, but don't come all the way down here. Just take a little detour and wrap it over like that. So come back onto this bottom side of the thread and see that one will lie smoothly, whereas this one will not. I hope you give this fun stitch a try.